You think you can lie your way out of a problem like this, but you just activated a trap you never saw coming. He thought sending a quick text about some work emergency was going to save him, that she would just accept the excuse and let him walk away, but she knew too much. She had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, to prove that his whole routine of deception was utterly useless. I was just sitting there, watching him realize the full extent of his mistake. The truth, the absolute, hilarious truth, was always right beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to boil over. So when she finally played her hand, we were supposed to be doing this. The staycation, the networking, the break we had both been counting down to for months. Everything felt like it was finally going to click back into place, even if the marriage itself was barely hanging on by a thread. I remember how excited Anna was, talking about the conference and how much she needed this time with her new friends. She was so focused on making this perfect that she barely noticed how tense Dick was, how quickly he deflected every question about his work schedule. He kept saying an emergency came up, that he couldn't take the time off. It was a story that just didn't hold together, especially since I saw him check his phone every time she mentioned a specific meeting. He was lying, and I had no idea who he was lying to. We were just talking about nothing. The usual crap, Anna's online courses, Dick complaining about his boss, the kids' grades. It felt normal, the way it always does when we're all gathered in the living room. I always felt like I knew them. I knew Anna was smart, even if she was juggling so much. And I knew Dick, even when he was being a self-absorbed jerk, that at his core, he was just predictable. They were my people, and I trusted them completely. It was the kind of comfort you build a life on brick by solid brick. But when Anna mentioned that new study group she was doing with those friends, and how she was really focused on the details, something felt slightly off. And when she casually mentioned that her friend Jessica always carried a bright blue bandana, I felt a little knot tighten in my stomach. It was supposed to be a perfect weekend, just Anna and her friends, a total getaway, but the whole time, something felt off, like a wire was crossed in the narrative. Dick kept making these little excuses, always something unexpected popping up at work, always an emergency that required him to cancel. He kept telling me he was genuinely stuck. Anna seemed fine, but I caught her staring at her phone when he wasn't looking, and her smile felt strained. There was a detail, a flyer I found tucked into the hotel magazine, that didn't match the story he kept giving me. If you were watching this, who would you suspect was lying? Because I looked at that flyer, and all I could think was how I should have checked sooner. She didn't yell, which was somehow worse. Instead, she just went silent, the kind of deep, wounded silence that makes you realize every single thing you ever joked about with your friends was a lie. We tried to fix it that night, suggesting movie nights or maybe a brunch. But the resentment was too thick. I saw the quick practice texts she sent to her friend group, deleted immediately, like she was trying to erase. The last 6 months, everything was falling apart, not with a bang, but with these tiny, frustrating, almost invisible little leaks. The pressure from her family, the sheer disappointment, it was suffocating. But that was not the worst part. Later, she found a photo album, one we hadn't looked at in years. And when she opened it, she didn't cry. She just looked up at me, her eyes wide and completely blank, and asked, "Did he really leave the keys on the—" "It was a misunderstanding, Anna. You have to understand. I was working. I was doing my best. And you keep blowing this up." His voice was strained, all practiced distress. "You're always so dramatic, exaggerating things until they sound like a disaster movie." I watched them, the whole exchange, and he played the role of the harried, overworked man perfectly. He looked genuinely panicked, convincing her that the problem was merely bad timing, not deceit. I almost bought it, seeing how quickly she started to back down, how his performance was masterful. He was so good at making me believe that she was the one being overly sensitive. But then she paused, just for a beat, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. She wasn't upset about the time off at all. It was supposed to be her break. Months of planning, the whole trip hinging on him actually taking the time off. But of course, he found some emergency, another excuse, another flimsy lie to get out of anything that required him to be present. I kept telling her he was going to mess it up, and she just got that tight look in her eye, the one that meant she was done begging. It wasn't just a cancellation, though something else felt off. When he finally texted her that night, his tone was completely wrong, like he was trying too hard to sound apologetic. She didn't even respond to the "I'm sorry" part. She just sent back one single word, "Fine." And then, when the connection dropped, I saw a faint shimmer in the corner of her phone screen, like oil on water, which was definitely not the screensaver. It wasn't just Anna and Dick. The moment she mentioned the convention, her friends, her new clique, seemed to instantly rally around her. Everyone started asking questions about Dick, whispering little things I couldn't quite catch, but the tone was definitely critical. Even some of his coworkers, who actually spoke to me, seemed to sympathize with her need for a break. The pressure was overwhelming. It felt like the whole neighborhood had decided who was right. It was a collective consensus. I genuinely wondered if I was the only one who didn't feel the intense wave of loyalty washing over everyone. Tell me in the comments who you think really deserves to win this drama. At the end of the day, though everyone seemed to take Anna's side, I remember the way her voice shifted when she told me he couldn't make it. That little sigh of defeat like the whole perfect plan had evaporated in the night. But she didn't just accept it. She was quiet for a long time, just staring at the ceiling. And then she got up. I thought she was going to scream or cry, but she just walked into his study. I was hovering in the doorway, expecting the shouting match, the messy drama. Instead, she was unnervingly calm. She just reached into his briefcase and pulled out a receipt. It wasn't for the hospital or his supposed work emergency. It was for a fancy dinner downtown with a name I knew perfectly well was not his. She didn't yell. She just looked at him, and the realization hit him like a... I watched the pieces scatter, a perfect tableau of humiliation. He froze, mouth open, unable to process the sheer audacity of it. Anna just looked at me, her smile a mixture of triumph and warning. I knew then that letting this play out would only make the inevitable fallout worse. The risk was enormous, the kind that could destroy years of fragile peace. A deep knot of fear twisted in my gut, but I felt a sudden, desperate clarity. I had to do something, even if I had no idea what. Before I could move, he spoke, his voice surprisingly firm, telling me that if I interfered, I would lose everything. The silence that followed was deafening, thick with the unspoken accusations we'd been avoiding for months. Dick started the blame game immediately. Of course, pointing fingers at the job, at the stress, at everything but himself. Anna just looked at him. That kind of look that doesn't require yelling. It just requires absolute, quiet certainty. I watched the whole exchange unfold, feeling that familiar, satisfying little laugh bubble up. It wasn't even a confrontation. It was a performance, and he was utterly flustered on stage. Soon, the messages started flying, texts that were half panicked, pleading, half aggressive deflection. People always try to rewrite the narrative, don't they? To make it seem like it was her asterisk fault for being too successful, too happy, too unbothered. But honestly, when someone repeatedly screws up their life, do they deserve to reap the emotional harvest? I honestly thought this was going to be the end of their marriage, just like Anna had been warning me. But then, at the convention, he thought he could pull the same stunt, just a little variation of the old routine. Little did he know, Anna was ready. She played a card, and suddenly, the entire dynamic flipped. Watching him panic, watching his face drain of color, was genuinely priceless. I was laughing, but deep down, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction, the kind you only get when justice finally lands. Now, people are arguing in the comments about whether she went too far, or if he deserved every bit of the payback. What do you think? Was Anna right to do that? Let me know your take in the comments below. And don't forget to follow for more stories like this.